Hello everyone and welcome back to this third session of the 8th week of Angular development course. So in the previous session we understood what is pure and impure pipes, and along with that we also created our own custom pipe. So in this session we will be exploring a bit more about custom pipe to understand what it is all about. So as we saw earlier, in addition to the built-in pipes, we can also define our custom pipes for required data transformation capabilities. We can define both pure and impure custom pipes, as you saw, depending on the user use cases. Now we will explore a real-world use case of custom pipe in the next demo. So this is one of the examples which we saw already in the previous session, wherein what we did is we created a filter pipe, we passed it a list of user, we passed it a search query, and here what we basically did was we are just, if we first check if that user list or search query is empty. If so, we just pass the original data list. If not, to this original data list we just filter it and we just check if each of these name is matching the search query with the lowercase, both of that converted to lowercase. If so, we just send those objects back to the user. Okay, so this was one scenario where we just kind of created a filter which is created a pipe which is just filtering. So assume that in this I don't want to filter it, rather I want to do some data transformation. How can I do that? So let's try to do that, right? So assume I'm just commenting this out. Okay, so let's have the same thing. So I'll just, for purpose of this demo, I'll just keep the pure as true. Okay, so since we already understood the concept of pure, false, pure and impure, I'm not getting into that again. So what I'll do now is, so assume that so now let's assume we'll just slightly modify this concept right now. So we are not going to search any longer. So in our HTML we can go ahead and kind of just disable this links. So what we'll do is, instead of searching by name, we will just say like add name or edit name. Okay, edit first name, just for example. Okay, so let's try to understand what we are doing here. So what we'll do is, so assume this is the original data set, and in this original data set, whatever the user types over here, I want the first element to change. Okay, so instead, like say if I type PQR, I want, or PQA, so I want the first name over here to change as PQA. How can I do that using the custom pipe? So I just go to my filter pipe. For now we are just returning the original list. We have committed the original code. So here for this scenario, what I can do is I can just take user list. I can go to the first element in that user list, take the name, and whatever the user is typing in search query, I can assign that and I can return the original list back. So now what happens is, you see that initially it's empty and even the ABC is gone. Why is that so? Because if I come to app component.ts, here the search query is initialized as empty by default, right? Because we are getting not equal to string. So if you don't want that, what you can do is you can just remove this, initialize it to some name like maybe ABC. So now what will happen is, by default you will see ABC here, you will also see ABC here. That is two-way data binding, right? So the same variable will also update the model, the same variable will also update your view. Okay, so now instead of ABC I decided to type mark. So you'll see in real time even my data is getting updated, and only the first data is getting updated because I have written the logic in such a way, whatever I write over here, the first name would be updated in that way. If I don't write anything, the name will be empty. If I type something, that name would be coming over there. So this is an application of custom pipe. So as I said, any business logic which you want to write as part of your filter or your custom pipe, you can be doing over here. You could filter the data, you could modify the data, you could manipulate the data, so on and so forth. So this was just a simple example. What we can do is we can take a real world example and we will try to implement a pipe, a new pipe, which will kind of take an input from the user, and depending on the number it will convert that either from your Celsius to Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit to Celsius. So that is also one of the real world example wherein we could be doing some data transformation as well. So let's see how we can do that. So in order to do that, the first thing that we will do is we will just kind of comment out all this, because we won't be using all this HTML over here. So we're just commenting out all of this. Now what we will do is, as I said, we are going to write a custom pipe which is going to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius. So as you guys know, it is purely a mathematical thing. So if you have, like, you have to do Fahrenheit to Celsius, it is like the Celsius whatever value you have minus 32 divided by 1.8. Vice versa, if you want to convert to Celsius to Fahrenheit, it is Celsius value multiplied by 1.8 plus 32. Okay, you can easily Google out the formula. There's nothing much to worry about. Our focus is more on to understand how can we write the pipe conversion for us. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll do one thing. We'll start from the scratch. We'll create another custom pipe. So I'll just kill the server, and now what I will do is I will write ng generate, G for generate, P for pipe. Okay, and now I'll write something called as temperature pipe. Okay, so temp, enter. So this will create a new pipe for me over here. So what we have basically done is we have just created a new temperature pipe. So as you can see over here, our pipe is ready. So now we have to write the logic wherein we have to specify what is the conversion which it's going to do. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is, first we'll write the core logic of our pipe. So we will first write the core logic of like how the pipe conversion will happen, and then we'll write the HTML and other part of it. Okay, so since your pipe is going to do two-way conversion, either it will convert Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius, so definitely it will have a value, and it will also have an argument. So the argument is nothing but it will tell you whether it is you have to convert to Celsius or you have to convert it to Fahrenheit. Okay, and always remember, by default the values here will be unknown, so you need to change it. Okay, without that, as you saw in the previous session, it will throw you error that if you are trying to like iterate through it or do some other operation which is specific to data type, it will throw error. So it's better you always keep it to the known data type. So we know that value whatever we give, it's going to be number, because the temperatures are normally number, and the argument that we are going to pass is nothing but just going to be a string where we are going to say the unit, like whether it is a Celsius or Fahrenheit. So we'll just say unit is string. Okay, and the return type, again we can since it's going to be kind of a a floating digit number, what we can do is we can just remove the return type as well. So that is also fine because we are going to pass a floating number. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll first check if the same logic applies, right? So if we will first check if there is no value, then you just kind of return null. Okay, so null means there will be no data passed, right? And one more thing to remember over here is, yeah, now we can write the core business logic. Okay, so just think about it. First we need to check what is the unit being passed, right? So if we'll write the first condition, if unit equal to Celsius, or maybe you can just pass as C, that is also fine. Then return value minus 32 divided by 1.8. Always remember to put the bracket properly, or else it might not give the proper value. Okay, and just to ensure that it is not giving you too much of decimal points, we will just kind of put it as 2, and since we are using 2 fixed, now we can say that this transform will return us the value of string. Okay, and since it will return the value of string, here we need to pass a empty string. Okay, so this is the first part. The second part, if it is not Celsius, rather it is Fahrenheit. Okay, so in that case the same logic, only the formula changes. So instead of value minus 32, it will be value 1 into 1.8 plus 32. Okay, so this is like converting to Fahrenheit, and this is converting to Celsius. Okay, and once that is done, we kind of just return. And in case if you are not passing it any value, in that case what we can do is we can just return the original value as it is. Okay, or maybe just convert it to string, and we can just return it to the original value back. Okay. Why we have to convert to string? Because here we are telling the return type of this transform is string. So anything, if after a function you give a colon and that, it means the return type of that function is this particular data value. And since you have determined it as string, so you have to ensure that wherever you are returning from this function, it has to only be a string. Okay. So this was step number 1. We have defined the core pipe for our application. Now the next thing is we have to go and define the HTML for this where we are going to kind of write use the conversion. So I'll go to the app.html. I've commented the earlier code. So let's quickly write a HTML code for this. So I'll just kind of take a paragraph or a div, whatever you like. So just for sake, we'll use div itself. So I will write maybe first I will take input the Fahrenheit degree, and then I take in an input. So basically here we'll let the user type the value. Here we will pass it a variable. So I'll just call it as Fahrenheit degree, Fair degree. Okay, just a short form of Fahrenheit. And once this input is declared, so it is throwing error because we have not yet declared it. So go to your app component.ts. You can comment out all this for now because we are not using it. So whatever we wrote earlier, I'm just commenting all of that. Okay. So first we declare a new variable called Fair degree. Okay. So that is of the type number, and we will not initiate it, or maybe we'll just initiate it with the numbers maybe 10. Okay. So initially I'm just giving it a number of 10. And similarly for Celsius also I will have number, and initially I will just initiate it with 10. Okay. So now in my HTML, so once the user enters a number, just below that I will show them what is the corresponding Celsius value. So I'll say converted Celsius value, and here I will take the Fair degree and apply the temperature filter to it, and here I will pass the value as C. Okay. And the same logic I'll just repeat again for Celsius to Fahrenheit conversion. So now I'll just start the server. ng serve. Always remember that whenever you're creating a new file, you have to ensure the server is killed. That's why we killed it earlier. So I'll just do ng serve ho. The server is starting now. So once it is started, it will open a new tab for us. You'll see that in the console it is throwing error that semicolon is expected, which means that we haven't closed something properly. Yeah, so with that said, we have done, and if you just refresh the application, it now works. So you see that when the Fahrenheit is 10, it is telling the converted Celsius value is -12, and whenever the Celsius is 10, it is telling the Fahrenheit value 0. To ensure that this is working properly, all you can do is you can just go to Google, and what we'll do is we'll just convert 10 Celsius to Fahrenheit. You see that the value is 50. So this is just for you to validate it in real time, whatever you have written is right or not. So similarly, if I put it as 25, the value should come as 77. So let's check that. If I put as 25, the value should update to 77, but it is not updating. Let's now understand why. So now you see that for Fahrenheit, if we change something, it works fine. but for Celsius it is not working fine. So let's try to debug it. If you see the HTML, the ng model which we are declared for Fahrenheit is Fahr degree and for Celsius is Cel degree. But here for converted, again we are using the same Fahr degree, which is the issue. So you need to use this model over here, right? So now if I save it and now run it, so if I change something over here and if I change something over here, it works fine. So just want to, if I want to validate, if I put 77 degrees Celsius, the answer is 170.6, which I'm getting. And similarly, if I do a Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion, so maybe if I take 44 Fahrenheit, it is converting 6.66, which is fine. So rounding off 6.67, which is fine. So this is how we write our custom filters. So let's try to understand again what we have done. So first we have just defined the HTML. So in the HTML, what we are doing is we are taking an input from the user. You have used ng model because we are creating two variables in the TypeScript, one for getting the Fahrenheit degree, one for getting the Celsius degree. Initially we are just initializing it with the number 0 10. It's not necessary you have to initialize the 10, even if it's empty it is fine. So the second thing is what we are doing next is we are showing the user the converted value. How we are showing the converted values? We are taking this whatever the Fahr degree variable which the user has updated. So how this ng model works is whenever the user updates that updated value will now get automatically stored in this Fahr degree. Okay. So whatever is that updated value, we are filtering it, like we are passing it to the pipe called our custom pipe called temp, along with an extra argument called C. Okay. So what now happens in your temperature pipe is it will come into this transform function. It will see, like, it will get a value which is of type number, and it will get a argument which is of the type string, and the return type of this is going to be a string. Okay. So next it will come to line 10. It will check if the value is empty, like, there is no value. If there is no value, it will directly return empty. Okay. And similar, it's not necessary you have to return empty. You can also maybe pass as invalid. Okay. So in that case, what happens is if I don't pass any value, so it will give me invalid. Okay. So this is, like, it's up to you what you want to show, whether you want to show empty, you want to show invalid, any number, whatever you want. Okay. So that is one thing. After that, it will come to the next if condition. So it will check if this unit argument what we have passed, whether it is C or F. So where we pass that is over here. So temperature colon. So how you pass argument in pipe is by this colon symbol. So colon, whatever you pass after that is considered as a argument. Okay. So in few cases you might also pass an entire array as an argument, even that is allowed. Okay. So here we are, since we are passing just C, we will check if the unit, whatever argument we have passed, whether it is of the string C. If that is the case, we do the Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion, which is of this formula. Okay, and later we are doing it 2 fix 2 because we just want it to show the up to 2 decimal places. Okay, so that is why we are doing 2 fix 2, and since we do 2 fix 2, it means that it's going to return a string output. So that is why we are telling that this is going to return me a string output. Okay. Similarly, if the unit is not C, if it is F, then I say, take the value, multiply by 1.8 plus 32 and return me the output with 2 decimal places as Celsius, like as Fahrenheit. So this was for the two cases. And for the final scenario, I'm saying that, in case if the user is not passing me C or F, then I'm just returning the original value. So how can we check that is? So what I'll do is, I will just take this and I will just say default value. Okay, and here instead of C or F, I don't pass anything to the, I'm just passing an empty string to the filter. Okay, so let's see what happens in this case. So if I take and I type 15, you'll see the same 15 is getting passed over here, and whereas it is getting converted properly as for the Fahrenheit. And say in my temperature, now I decided no, I don't want the value to just go as the same value. Maybe say assume, like, I want to multiply this value with, say, maybe 100, and I want to pass that as, so instead of say, I don't want to return the original value, but instead say I want to kind of multiply it with some value. What I can do is I can just create a temporary variable called temp, take value, multiply it by 100. Okay, And just for some fun, what we can do is we can return. So what it will do now is, if you come back to the application, if since we do not pass any value to this default value, it is automatically taking the number, multiplied it by 100, and it is doing a string manipulation as well. So if I pass it as 50, it will convert it as 5000 and add the string along with it. So this is how you kind of write custom pipes. So as I said, it purely depends on the business logic that you write. So it's not like any hard and fast rule that this is what you write as custom pipe. So based on what business rules you have, you may be writing multiple custom pipe. I'll give you a few scenarios. So one of the scenario could be like, you could be writing a pipe which could maybe doing this number separator. So you might have seen a few applications where like, based on the country locale and all, you will be having this number separator. So like say for in India, we use something like this, right, to write 1 lakh. But if you go to US at all, like, if you want to write 21 lakh, this is how you write. But if you go to US, they write it something like this, right? So to do this kind of formatting, you could probably write your own custom pipe along with any other logic as well. So similarly, you could also have converters which could do some mathematical conversions. So one we already saw. The other one could be, which is part of your assignment. So say the user wants like, to have a file size converter. So say maybe like, the user is entering the data maybe in megabytes. Okay. So they say like they enter 30. Okay. And I want this 30 to be automatically converted into bytes. So like, I write my logic in such a way that this megabyte gets converted into byte automatically. So for this, again, we will use the concept of a custom pipe. Similarly, in some travel sites and booking sites, you would have seen that, no matter what you type, say for example, you could have some serial key validator. So say if you type some like, serial key or voucher code, so the voucher code is something like this: GXHIT and X1234, just example. And say after the first 5 characters there is a hyphen to be inserted. So what happens is, the user may or may not type this hyphen, but you could write a custom pipe in such a way that you could count the total number of string, and after the first 5 occurrence, you could automatically add a hyphen. And similarly, after say maybe the next 4, add another hyphen, so on and so forth. So even this kind of logic you could write using your custom pipe. Okay. So in short, anything that in your application you see where the user is typing data or giving the object data in one format and it gets transformed to another format, so in between you have to use something called as the logic of pipe. Okay. And pipe could also be used for filtering as well. So as we saw here, so say assume like, you have a list of array objects and you have a filter. So you could pass this input to a filter. So what happens is, like, directly whenever the user types something, the data will get automatically filtered and it will come back to the user with the filtered data. So that is the application of custom pipe. And as we discussed earlier in the previous session, it is very, very, very important that you understand the difference between pure versus impure pipe. Okay. So by default, all the pipe which is created in Angular is pure. Pure means it will only run the pipe execution when there is a change to the value, if it is a pure data type like string number, or if the object reference itself changes. Okay. So what I mean by object references, if the memory in which it stores that itself changes. In case of impure pipe, it will run for every change detection cycle and will get triggered for any small changes that happens in the application. But as I said, in real world applications, using impure pipe is not at all recommended, because it will slow down your application. So how can I use pure pipe but still overcome this is, as I showed in the previous demo, what we can do is, instead of directly doing a property change, we can do a change in reference. How we can do that? So take a object, whichever is your original data object, like, just destructure it, or like, splice it, or do some operation, assign it to a new variable, a new object. In that object, whatever your name want to change or whatever property you want to change, do that, and you return. Then later what you do is, you just assign that property back to the original object, which is A. So now what A is nothing but it is a copy of B, pointing to the same object memory location of B. So now since the reference of A is changing, automatically even your pure pipe will run the transfer method on this new data, and your filter will work properly. Okay, so with that being said, we have reached to the end of this pipe. I hope you guys have understood it properly. So pipe, just to sum it up, is nothing but just a data transformation means which is used by Angular in order to convert. So just remember it in this way, right? So pipe, you can just, as I said earlier, pipe you can just consider it as a means. So whatever data you pass through it, you will write the business logic in it in such a way that it transforms that data and gives you a formatted data as output. So this is your output, this is your input, and this is nothing but your pipe. Okay, this is the summary of your pipe. So with that, we have reached to the end of this pipe discussion on pipe. So before I go, I strongly recommend that all of you go to this angular.io site. So here there'll be something, if you just search for pipe, you will get a list of all the pipes. So what I want you to do is just click on this pipe. Okay, and I want you to just go through it, understand whatever we have discussed so far, like what is pure pipe, what is impure pipe, and all that things. And once you feel that you are kind of comfortable with it, there's also something called style guide pipe names, so which shows like how should you be naming your pipe, and how to write the unit test cases. You don't need to bother because we'll be covering it separately, but I want you to just go through the various pipes which is available in Angular. So I want you to go through async pipe, slice pipe, currency pipe, data pipe, decimal pipe, and key value pipe, lowercase pipe, so on and so forth. So wherever you see like it is having this icon P, it means it's a pipe. The rest of the things you can ignore, like destroy and all. So whatever you see with this icon P, I want you guys to go through it. We have already covered most of them in our class, and for the rest of it, I just want you to go through it, understand what it is doing, and try out your own examples as well. And with that, we have reached to the end of this third session, and hoping to see you guys in the fourth session.